Hi, Ginger Owusu here with my final presentation called Disparities in Education. The first article I looked at was called What the Real World in Schools is Like, Urban Youth and Dialogue about Educational Inequality. I found it through the Education full text database. I used the keywords disparity in education and racial to find this article. It's in a journal called Urban Review, and here is the citation. This article is based on interviews that the researcher did with 8 high school students who attend urban and suburban high schools in a relatively low income and very racially divided area. The school district has a program called the Voluntary Desegregation Program where students can transfer to other schools if they want to have access to a better school. And what this article does is it offers kind of a student view of educational inequalities. And these students were in a program that that encourages student reform and helps build student leaders within the schools. And what the researcher did is had the students talk about the different things in their school that they noticed, like lack of access, those kinds of things. And the students noticed several disparities in their schools. They noticed lack of access. One student talks about how there are only 3 computers in the whole school and students aren't allowed to use them. Another student talked about how there are 2 computer labs with lots of computers, and there are even laptop carts that the classrooms can use. Of the 8 students, 7 of them were African American, and they noticed how there are few, if any, minority teachers within the schools. One jokingly talks about a black janitor, and one mentions a secretary, but they do notice that there are not teachers of color in their schools. They also talk about unqualified substitutes, subs that are not really qualified to teach the subjects that they are subbing for, and those kinds of things. The second article that I looked at was called Black Leadership, White Leadership, Race and Race Relations in an Urban High School. I found this through the Education full text database. I used the keywords racial disparity in education, and it is in the Journal of Educational Administration. And here is the reference for that one. This article discusses the relationship between African American and white leaders, like teachers, administrators, and those kinds of things. So you get a different perspective. This is one from the perspective of the adults. And it really focuses on the relationship between the African American leaders and the white leaders. And this researcher found that there are 3 subcultures that exist in some schools. There is the black leadership subculture, the white leadership subculture, and then kind of a subculture that forms between the interactions between these other 2 subgroups. And they found that that the black teachers will interact with each other differently, and the white teachers interact with each other differently. And they found that that there are still tensions between the black leadership and the white leadership. It mentions that the black leadership doesn't feel like the white leadership respects them, and the white leadership, it's a lot of, to me it sounded like a lot of misunderstanding on the parts of both groups, and these interactions between them kind of bled over into the school day and affected the students. The third article that I did is called The Disproportionality Dilemma, Patterns of Teacher Referrals to School Counselors for Disruptive Behavior. I found this through the Education full text database. I used the keywords equity and education to find this one, and it is in the Journal of Counseling and Development. And here is the citation for that one. This article discusses the difference in disciplinary action, and they focused on math and English teachers, and what they really wanted to study was to find out if there is a higher percentage of minority students being sent to the principal as in relation to white students. In one school that he looked at, he talks about how the African Americans only make up 17% of the population, but are like 43% of the students sent for disciplinary actions. And he found that students of color, whether they are African American, Latino, or Asian, are more likely to be disciplined mostly for like aggressive behaviors, whereas the white students are more likely to be sent for things like cheating and those kinds of things. He did mention that females of all races are referred less often than males, and that at-risk students were more likely to be referred to school counselors for disruptive behavior. The next article I looked at was the interactive impact of race and gender on high school enrollment in advanced placement courses. Again, I found this through the Education Full Text Database. I used the keywords racial and gender and education to find this one, and it is in the Journal of Negro Education. Here is the reference for that one. This article discusses the differences between the racial and gender differences in AP enrollment, in voluntary AP enrollment. It looked at a school that has voluntary advanced placement enrollment, and what he found were that white females are more likely to enroll in these classes than any other group, and that black males are the least likely to enroll in these voluntary advanced course classes. And he says that the differences may be due to social differences in this community. Black males are supposed to be, tough and, kind of they're not brainy. Being smart is not a quality that they seek after in this community. The last article that I looked at was called Digital Equity in Education, a multi-level examination of differences in and relationships between computer access, computer use, and state-level technology policies. Again, I found this through the Education Full Text Database. I used the keywords equity and education to find this one, and it is in the Education Policy Analysis Archives. And here is the reference for that one. This article discusses the different inequalities in regards to access to technology. He differentiates between computer use and computer access. Just because students have access to computers doesn't necessarily mean that they use the computers. So he talks about the differences between computer use and computer access, and found that there are large disparities throughout the country. A lot of minority schools with large minority populations have less access, therefore they have less computer use. And he found that in schools where there is lots of computer access, that minorities are less likely to use the computers as well. There are racial disparities. There are gender disparities. Females are more likely to use the technology than males. So why did I choose these articles? They point to a disturbing fact in our society. Since marrying my husband, race has become kind of a not sensitive subject for me, but I'm definitely more aware of the racial differences within our society. And these articles point out that children of color are being disadvantaged. They are not being given access to technology that they should. They are being characterized as having more bad behavior problems, and this to me is disturbing. And another thing that I found disturbing was that these effects are found in all areas, whether it's the teachers interacting with each other, whether it's in regards to technology, in regards to grades, in regards to everything, which I found very, very disturbing. My children will be biracial. So this is an issue that is close to my heart. When I have children, I want them to have every advantage that every student has. So this is something that is close to my heart, that I want to make sure that my children are given the best access to everything when it comes to their education. And I want better than this for them. So what's the solution? First of all, we need to start at the top with the leadership. Leadership needs to be able to put aside their differences. They need to move beyond race. They need to move beyond gender. And they need to be able to come together as people in order to do their jobs. And they need to realize that there are many personality types. Leaders need to be aware that their personality may not mesh well with someone else's, and they need to learn how to deal with someone with a different personality. They need to be able to discuss and understand differences. I think it's great for open-minded people of different races to come together and just kind of discuss their experiences and their perceptions, and just in an open forum just to talk about that and be able to say, here's what I see, here's what I experience. And that gives everybody a better understanding of each other. And I think that the psychodynamic approach survey in Northhouse's book is a great tool that leaders should utilize. Money is also an issue. Schools need to learn how to be frugal. They need to ensure that students respect the resources that they have available to them. And they need to utilize those resources. You know, if they have them, they need to use them. There is no quick fix for this. I mean, unless somebody, you know, has lots of money they're willing to give every school in America, this is not going to be a easy problem to fix. And poor schools need to be able to give students the chance to transfer when possible. This actually happened in a high school where I grew up, that my cousins were actually attending. And this may sound a little trite. Excuse me. But schools need to be thankful for what they do have. We also need to be aware that students do recognize these inequalities as well. We need to create a school culture of acceptance. We need to teach students that it's okay that somebody is different from you, that somebody has different ways of thinking, ways of doing things than you, and that it's okay. They're just adding to the richness of the world. And we need to give teachers the tools to remove these barriers. Teachers need to have cultural training. They need to have race relations training. They need to be able to move beyond their preconceptions in order to reach students of all races that they may run across. And I think it's great to have students participate in exchanges, even if it is just you know, a white student spending a day at a predominantly black school, or a black student at a predominantly Asian school, or whatever. You know, I think it's important for students to be able to experience different situations than the one they're in. It opens up their minds and it helps them understand better. And we need to help students see eye to eye. Create student forums, create places where students can come and discuss issues that they find important to them, and be able to talk those out among themselves and learn what their peers are thinking about the same subject. Which that's what my next point was, is to facilitate these student-to-student discussions to help them see eye to eye. And above all else, communicate, communicate, communicate. Communication is the key for any solution. We don't know what's going on with the other person's head. We need to talk to them. We need to communicate with them. We need to find out what their issues are, help them when we can. And that's my presentation. Thank you.